thought you a TCU grad.
No.
What the heck?
We're recording? Yes!
Nope. I graduated from Southwestern.
Sorry, I do this on my own, so you know how that goes.
Well, it's not up to snuff.
No,
it's easy to do stuff that doesn't work.
The words have gotten all distorted. But what they meant to say was not reported. Before the torches come to town, we gonna burn this fort.
Welcome back to FORTitude, guys. It is Brinton Payne across from me. JW Wilson is who's speaking. This is
So
FORTitude.
emphatic. He must be excited about this.
I am.
Yeah.
I am. I think it's FORTitude FW is our handle on social media in Roxo Media House on the internet. If you wish to email or find us on
Are you enjoying the 90-degree December days?
85, but yes, I am.
Yeah,
The
it
wasp-
doesn't do anything for my allergies when
Right.
it's
You do look
85 in December.
You do look a little puffier than normal, but I look puffy like this all the time. So,
That's because I just ate like 3 chocolate chip cookies in your kitchen.
and, yeah, those were for me, by the way. Thank
And
you.
the cheese puffs I brought in for the
I could
office.
spot 3 snacks just sitting here.
I
around
knew-
You
the
could probably
room.
smell them,
I knew the cheese puffs would have to be brought in somehow, some way.
which I bought at an Office Depot, which it's not really the place you'd think to buy snacks, but it was so large and plentiful, the jar of Cheetos.
We have those at our office,
Brinton,
too.
They're good.
Yes, they are.
they're not good for you, though, as you can probably imagine. So,
They're
Nothing
one
that
step
tastes
away
good
from
is.
plastic. Yeah.
the voice you're hearing is the guy by the name of Cameron Fowler, the owner, founder of Digital Seat Media. And thank you for joining us, Cameron. We're honored to have you in our presence.
Yeah,
you
appreciate
have a phenomenal story, and we're gonna get all in that today.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah,
Appreciate
thanks
it.
for being here.
Yeah, absolutely.
As we just learned, you are a Southwest Christian High School graduate, year 2004.
Yep.
And then the really cool part, kids, close your ears. He didn't go to college,
Yeah, right.
but there's a good reason for that. So tell us how Digital Seat found you.
Yeah, so I've worked with my co-founder, Matt Sullivan, for about 12 years now. And so we're working on a project around facial recognition software for people like Intel. And we started working together, me working on the business development side, him working on the engineering side. His background was a senior engineer at Dell. And then once we kind of quit doing facial rec, then we were very fortunate enough to where we started picking up jobs for consulting that really we found interesting. And so why we would do things like data infrastructure for Mary Kay. We worked on the Build Your Own Shoe campaign for Reebok. But we were actually working on a project in conjunction with Google that had to do with what's called near field communication chip. And that is the chip inside your phone that allows you to make mobile payments. And so you can just, whenever you go into a CVS and you tap your phone and you pay using Apple Pay, that's NFC. Well, I had a bunch of NFC tags on my desk at the office, and I called Matt and I said, hey, I was like, do you realize that we can pass data back and forth with these? It doesn't just have to be mobile payment. We can tap on it and send somebody to a website. And he said, okay, so what? And I said, well, that means I'm a big sports fan, grew up going to TCU games and Texas games and things of that nature. And I said, what about sports stadiums? I said, I'm so tired of going to these games and they say, hey, download the app. I said, and I can't download it because the bandwidth's awful. I said, what if we put them on seats and then you could tap your phone to it? And he said, well, what if we did QR codes while we wait for NFC to get adopted? And that was really kind of the genesis of the idea.
What year was that?
That was back in 2000. What are we in? 2021. That was in 2000 and probably 15.
Okay.
Pre-pandemic, pre-snap the picture of the QR for your
was-
menu, all that stuff.
Pre everything.
Yeah.
Pre being able to scan it natively too, as well.
What's QR stand for?
Quick response code.
Quick response.
Okay.
Speaking of, what the heck is a QR code for those who don't know you?
So the QR code is I'm trying to think of the best way to describe it, is the square black and white object you see on a lot of consumer packaged goods. You see it on most restaurant tables these days, where you can open up your phone camera, aim it at it, and then it will launch, a website or launch an app download. They use them a lot in their infancy for inventory tracking, but a lot of people don't know, overseas, especially in Asia Pac, they have been used for years as the main form of payment. So when people go up and they go to a gas station and they grab a bag of chips, they simply scan a QR code that's sitting right there by the register and walk out the door. And I think it's something like 75% of all payments overseas are used through QR codes. We're just way behind here.
Now, will a QR replace like a UPC, or this totally separate? Like it's kind of Or am I conflating
No,
here?
it could. They can both pass because so UPC has a set amount of data that it can use. QR code is variable, so you can have different, which is why you'll see some QR codes that don't have as little mini rectangle boxes inside of it, and you see some that have thousands of them, and that's telling you how much data it's carrying inside of it. UPC, while one could technically replace the other, I mean, UPC has it is globally used. It is really good. It's the standard. So yes, they could, but I don't think that's probably going to be coming anytime soon.
Darn.
So you came up with this QR code for seats, and I know the story because I've heard it before, but tell us the story about how you were sampling all these ways to stick it on a seat where people like Brinton would peel it off and take it home with them.
Yeah, do you have super adhesive on that? Because
Yeah.
I was just thinking like I would peel that off.
Well, that was
Not this one, bro.
that was one of the things that I think, especially from a competitor standpoint, and we always explain this when we're at investor meetings and pitching to universities and pro teams, is the actual tag itself and what all went into making these silly little things. They're about 1.5 or 1 3/4 inches tall by 1 inch wide, and we were told early on, hey, if you're going to go put these in $1 billion stadium, they can't be torn off. They can't mess up the seat. And they've got to be able to last outdoors for years on end, because it doesn't make financial sense for us to go into a University of Oklahoma and put in 86,000 tags every single year. It just doesn't work.
Yeah.
So we were naive. We thought, okay, it's fine. We can go down to a local signage manufacturer. We'll get them to print some up. We'll go put them on. It can't be that difficult. Wow. 2.5 years later, we finally got a version that made sense. And that was by working with manufacturers around the world, literally writing patents around the way that we do some of this stuff, working with engineers and scientists at 3M, because we went to 3M and we said, look, there's no adhesive on the market that can do what we need it to do. We need it to last in negative 20-degree weather out in Colorado, and we need it to work in 115-degree weather in Fort Worth. And they were like, well, this is interesting. And so I got a master's in chemical engineering that I never wanted when working on all this stuff. And that has been really a big competitive advantage for us, because we have these giant facilities that say, hey, look, if somebody new signing on, have them call us and we will tell them how well it's worked. And yeah, we totally thought that people were going to come in and just, especially drunk college kids, were going to come in and say, I want to take this to my dorm room. Maybe we didn't have a lot of faith in humanity there, but that just hasn't been the case. Our loss rate has been almost
I do have a question about it.
non-existent.
If I was to have a rather large amount of Big League Chew bubble gum and stuck it to cover almost all of that, what would happen?
So in that instance, you can do it, but we have liaisons at every venue that go after every game. So they go by and they check the tags and say, hey,
They'd be able to scrape it off?
you can get stuff off the top.
Yeah.
But you can't take like your fingernail and scratch the QR code. You can't take your keys and scratch it. It's very, very resilient in the way that they go on there.
So
Nice.
I sit down in my seat, Cameron, and I open my phone and place it over this QR code. In a perfect world, what are all the opportunities that are afforded me with this QR?
Right. So we build, what will happen is when you aim your camera at it, it launches what we call the digital seat platform. So that has different modules. We have 28 of them that allow you to do things like order food and drink to your seat, look at live game stats, look at player rosters. We have a lot of brands that we work with, from Starbucks to Google to Pizza Hut to Papa John's, and they want to reach these fans that are inside the venues. And so we allow them to put different sponsorships on there. So we did a deal with Starbucks. They gave away $50,000 in free gift cards up at Washington. So you'll see a module for that. You'll see a way to engage with the players. But we also do things like incident reporting from a safety perspective. So if somebody in front of you is having a heart attack or somebody's drunk, you can just tap on there and say, hey, I've got an issue. And we know immediately where you are inside the stadium.
Chewing too much bubble gum.
Is one of the modules go directly to China, so all the information on my phone they have access to?
We, early on, especially whenever we were raising capital, the thing was, do you know how much money's in all this data? We as a company, we don't sell data. And that makes us an anomaly in the tech world. It's just something philosophically that we don't believe. So
you push out rather than
we push out,
bring in.
and we will. I say we don't sell data. We provide data to our school partners that's valuable to them. Like, hey, whenever you run, hey TCU, whenever you run a free helmet giveaway, you can expect 30% of fans to scan it. Or when you put Buffalo Bros Pizza on there, then you can bet that half of your students are going to scan. We share that kind of data.
anonymous anonymized data.
Yeah, and so that we have no issues with. But what
Yeah.
we don't do is if you scan the tag to sign up for free Starbucks, we don't go sell that to AT&T and go, hey, you should really solicit all these people. Like
You don't have a list of like for Boschini, like these are the kids who are really getting out of hand at the stadium on these seats because they scanned it. We know all their personal info.
not yet.
You see how he didn't say no. He said not yet.
I didn't say we didn't have
Maybe.
the list, but we don't share it. Let me put it that way.
Each tag is unique to its own seat, right? They're not just 55,000 tags. Everyone is unique.
It's like a big puzzle, and that was another challenge we had to overcome, was finding a manufacturer that could manufacture these tags at scale, at the quality we need them, but also when we do, again, a big stadium that's 80,000 seats, when we go in, we have giant crates that have 80,000 tags in them, and everyone goes to a designated spot.
By hand. Stuck?
Yeah, and we got, it was, well, I won't say embarrassed to say, but our very first venue was Virginia Tech basketball, and we went and put in, I think it was 9,000 tags. They came all individually wrapped with individual adhesive on the back.
Oh.
So imagine having to open up plastic and then peel off, and it took us 2.5 days to do that. We just got through doing the Rose Bowl at the beginning of the football season. We did 92,000 tags in 10 hours. So, I mean,
10 hours?
Yeah, and so you go from, we look back at where we were a year ago, and we're like, man, it took us 3 days to do 9,000 tags, and we just did 90,000 in 10 hours.
What's sped up? Is it the just experience? Do you carry like a machine that does it, or it helps you do it?
Or the labor? The labor's got to be so much better nowadays.
We have a core team now that we've gone through, we're almost at 1 million tags. And now that, when you do 1 million of something, you kind of understand proficiencies in it and what to do and what not to do. So we figured out how to organize tags before we ever get on site. I will say 70% of the work is done before we get there. Like every section is already boxed. All the tags are already in order. So we start bottom to top or top to bottom, and we go in and put them down. But we also figured out how to get them on sheets. Instead of doing them individual, we're getting them manufactured and coming in 42 on a sheet where we can just go and peel them off instead of having to do them one by one, and we don't have to deal with all this trash and everything else. It is significantly more efficient than it was in the beginning.
How many teams, how many schools are utilizing this technology?
So we'll be, right now, I think we're in 38 venues, most of them collegiate. We've got an NBA partner up at the Oklahoma City Thunder. We're getting ready to announce another professional partnership, hopefully here in the next, hopefully this month, by the end of this month, that we're really excited about.
You can tell us. It won't be out.
No one will know. It's just the three of us.
Yeah.
And
Our moms, too.
And we have Belgium listeners now, too.
There you go.
Yeah.
And so the big universities that we work with, which we're proud of, we're very proud of being from Texas. We're very proud that we have TCU, we have SMU, we have Baylor. But then the state of Oklahoma, I don't know what it is about up there with digital seat, but we're in about every venue you can possibly go. We're in Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, Tulsa, obviously the Thunder up there, but then we do across country. We do the University of Washington, we do the Rose Bowl, we do UCLA. So we're spread pretty far and wide.
What was the first one? Virginia Tech? That was the first one you got?
Virginia Tech was the first full-scale rollout. The first test we ever did was SMU.
Good.
So we went in and put some test ones down, and we learned about something whenever we were there, that there is a chemical called polytetrafluoride ethylene that none of us had ever heard of because there's no reason for normal people to hear of it. And what it is, it's essentially Teflon. Well, they put it on some seats, and seat manufacturers put it on there so that kids don't stick big league gum on there and things like that. Well, we didn't know that was a thing. So we went in and we went to put these tags down for the first samples, and they would not stick. And we're like, what is going on? But they had stuck on every other test that we had done. And that's whenever we learned about the substance. And that's when we had to go back to 3M and go, okay, here's another hurdle we've got to overcome. But that's what, again, competitive advantage.
Yeah, for sure.
So once that one got going, did it all fall into place? I mean, because you've been at this for a while. It wasn't just like an overnight thought of an idea type of deal.
It was just so a little bit of the backstory. We came up with the idea, and we went to a Major League Baseball team and said, hey, we'd love to deploy this here. And they said...
Was it the A's? I can only imagine that their analytics guys might be interested.
We went and we said we wanted to deploy it, and they said, this is great. And I'll put it this way. Major League Baseball stepped in and said, what a great idea. We're not going to let you do it. Have a good day. And we were like, what? And
That happens to me a lot around here.
right? It's the good ideas that they always throw in the trash.
Yeah.
And so,
You're probably
so,
understanding why, though.
so that was so we sat back and we were like, what in the world just happened? And then we stopped for 3 years. After that happened, we said, okay, I told Matt, I said, we need to continue to do what we do, work our day job, so to speak, and wait for QR code, because that was with NFC. I said we need to wait for QR code scanning to be native on the application. So then we came back and we got some partnerships, and we did SMU, we did Virginia Tech, and then we did the national championship game. That was at the beginning of 2020, and we're like, this is going great. Nothing bad can happen. We're ready to go. Well, March rolled around, and we were like, and then we were sitting around going, what just happened? Everything bad has happened and nothing's going as planned. And so we took a hiatus and sat back and did some self-reflection on what does this look like? What does the world look like when you're running a live event company and sports company with no live events? It's something you don't put in a SWOT analysis when you meet investors and go, well, you can say, oh, well, there's some competitors or other, but you don't say every live event in the world's been canceled. And so it didn't exactly just cascade into all this success, but we played it through. And then when football finally announced last year, hey, we're going to play with fans in the stands, and we were waiting up until 2 weeks before, until we found out, hey, Oklahoma's playing, the Big 12 is playing. And so we had 2 weeks to order all these tags and get them installed on. And go. Once we did that, then that kind of opened the floodgates where we got more calls.
Cameron, how does Digital Seat make its money off these tags?
So we have a couple different revenue models. So we have a partnership with Learfield IMG, which controls about 90% of the multimedia rights, the advertising rights in the collegiate space across the U.S. We partner with them, and we put tags in. They go and sell the sponsorship spots to these big brands, to the Googles, the Starbucks of the worlds. And we have a rev share model there. Our other model is just a straight licensing fee. So there's some, especially in the pro space, where we go to them and we say, how big's your venue? How many events do you have a year? They tell us, and we say, okay, it's going to cost you X amount of dollars a year. And they just write us a check, and we support the platform.
Have you gotten back into MLB, or there's still no way?
So,
or maybe I'm touching on the big announcement for the month.
I will say we have made ground there, and it's by way of ownership and these team leads that have really said, hey, we got to have this. And by the sixth team that called and I said, you can't do it. And the sixth time of them going, oh, yes, we can. And I'm like, okay, call me back when they say yes. And then they call back and go, yeah, they said no. And so, but now the tide is seemingly, it's looking like loosening up to where we might be able to do some creative things in there, especially with incident reporting. I mean, that's a big, because that's a safety thing.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's not just me.
Like if somebody threw a tortilla from a certain seat or something along those lines.
Exactly right.
Or do you just, instead of making the whole stand move to another section?
Yeah,
silly.
like that.
Yeah.
So you've also told me before that, I don't know if you're there yet, but you could actually put this in Las Vegas, say the Raiders. Do the Raiders have this? And could you gamble from these things at some point, somewhere?
So that is really our kind of, I won't say holy grail, but one of our big initiatives, and one that we write a lot of IP. We write a lot of patents that are really important to us of protecting what it is that we're doing. But we see a day where once sports gambling is legalized in every state, we think 10%, 12% of people are going to be what they call themselves sports wagers, where they have that app on their phone and they're sitting at the game, that's what they're doing. The other people that gamble are going to be what we call impulse bettors, that are sitting there and they've had a couple drinks on a Saturday and they're like, I bet $10 he's going to miss his field goal.
Bound ball.
We want those guys. I mean, we want them to, I always tell people, we exist for the same reason that Amazon exists. It's not because Amazon, they're not the size they are because they figured out how to sell things online. People had been doing that. They capitalize on the fact that we're lazy as human beings, that we want to tap something with one button and we want it the next day. That's why Digital Seat exists.
Why did you look at me when you said that?
Yeah, why did JW? And JW look at, he didn't catch it because he was looking at me when he said that.
A lot of reflection over there, huh?
Okay, I'm going to
look inward.
Yes, I'm going to crawl into Cameron's brain. I'm going to ask this. NIL.
Yeah.
This seat technology.
Yeah.
What happens?
So, we just got back from a conference.
Wait, let me connect.
There you go. Hand in glove. We just got back from a conference dealing with NIL, NFTs, what those look like in the future. NIL, some of these deals that we're hearing about are huge. There are a ton of platforms that are popping up for these student athletes to manage. So to make sure that they have the right agents, as weird as that sounds, to make sure that their deals are the way they're supposed to be, they're not taken advantage of. A lot of platforms for the schools to maintain control and look at it and go, okay, we know that Cameron's got this deal, JW's got this deal. So those are popping up. Where we see ourselves fitting in is these student athletes are using TikTok, they're using Twitter, they're using Instagram to communicate these deals, to say, hey, I signed with In-N-Out Burger, make sure you go to In-N-Out Burger. We see a world where they use digital seat, where they have their individual platform. So they can put on there their favorite charities. You can tap on it to sign up for Cameo. You can look at their favorite recipes. You can look at their highlight clips all in one space. It's consolidated.
Yeah.
I think that's where we live. We are at a point though where we are so busy trying to staff up that we have had a few conversations in that space that have been meaningful, but it's going to take us a little bit to get and really build that out.
Yeah.
So this could literally be everywhere, not just sports and that, but it could be everywhere at some point in front of us in every capacity of our life.
It's absolutely, like we did our pilot for the company. We didn't pilot in sports. We piloted in rideshare with Uber and Lyft, putting them in rideshare vehicles. So when you landed if you flew into Dallas from Phoenix, when you got in that Uber, you could scan the tag on the window and it would tell you, it would give you discounts on the Ranger game. It would tell you what's going on at Texas Live. It would tell you what bars had specials, that kind of stuff. So, and we have patents in that area too, just like medical. We see a day where, a nurse doesn't want to necessarily go into the room to bother a patient. So she walks by and scans the tags on the door and it says, hey, this is who's in there. Here's what's going on. So we're looking at it as we grow as a company is, yes, we got our start in sports, but we have an infrastructure. We are a technology platform. We just apply it to sports first, but it can be used in a wide variety of applications moving forward.
Have you had any really weird incident reports? Yeah, have you seen anything that are
So we try not to be nosy, but I did see one that I didn't quite understand. There was somebody they were in a stadium where it was concrete and the chairs are bolted to the concrete, right? So the incident report said, please help me, I've dropped my phone under the stadium. And we could not for the life of us figure out, I was like, I don't know what that means because it's completely concrete, the whole step. He didn't mean under a seat. And then somebody in the office goes, well, how'd he scan the tag if he dropped his phone under? I was like, I don't know, maybe his friend did it. So that was an odd one. And then another one we saw, help, I lost my wife. So that was kind of a
Did you
weird
guys,
one.
were you able to connect them?
The venues do it. We're the vessel. So we're AT&T if you're calling 911. We're getting you there.
Yep.
And so, but the best story that we heard was we had an MBA, a VP of ticketing, come to me and said, he goes, hey, I was at a game where digital seat is deployed. And the gentleman in front of me's armrest broke and he was very frustrated. He said, so I leaned forward to him and I said, hey, scan that digital seat tag and you can report it. He said he scanned it and said, my armrest broke. He goes, 10 minutes later, they were down there fixing his seat. And he said, and I said, I need you to record that so we can put it on the front of our website and everything else. Cause that's the stories we like to hear. We think that incident reporting is going to be a requirement at some point in every stadium because it's an easy way to do it.
I would think so.
Can you get us some stickers for our seats at the podcast?
We'll absolutely do that.
That we could then go to the website.
But I get to pick the design. It's going to be all two heads on there.
Oh, that's totally cool. But if there was something where he could assist me with some things, just like the seat fix deal,
I have lots
that would
to
be
report
fantastic.
about you too.
There you go. You can put the dashboard up there.
One of the new things you've done, digital student,
Yes.
for the new inventions of you guys. I think it's phenomenal, and for a lot of the reasons you've already talked about thus far. But how does digital student work?
So digital student, I was having a conversation with someone who works in a capacity on a school board, and they said, hey, have you thought about putting your QR codes on student IDs? And I said, well, we've thought about it. I said, why? And she said, well, there's a new bill that got passed in Texas where they're required to put the suicide prevention hotline on the back of the IDs. And she said, I thought that scanning the tag was a better way to communicate with students. So we really started drilling into it and doing our homework. Everybody knows what is going on as far as school shootings, as far as suicide. It's just teen suicide between the ages of 14 and 18 have gone up 60% since 2008. think about what happened around 2008. It's when social media really took hold. So these kids are seeing. And so what we keep hearing from these kids, and we work with high school kids, college kids when we install the tags, because they're our core demographic. They're our early adopters. And we built Digital Seat, but it's not our platform. It's the people that use it. And so we hear about their struggles and about what they need. And so we really got to talking, and Matt and I kind of said, look, if we can get these kids the ability to quickly scan that tag, and we link up with the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, which is chat. Because what we've learned is kids won't pick up the phone and call a suicide prevention number, but they will chat with somebody in real time. So we put together Digital Student, where they can scan their tag, they can chat with a suicide prevention specialist in real time. They can use our same incident reporting, where if they're getting bullied, or if their friend has a problem, or if there's, hey, I think somebody might have brought a gun to school, they can report that in real time. But they can also do fun stuff, like they can look at the athletic schedule. They can vote for prom king, prom queen. They can buy yearbooks. We want to give them the ability to apply for scholarships for college just real quick. And so we're really excited about it. I mean, we're passionate about what we build.
Wait, so you put the IDs on, where do those?
They go, because most school systems require students to have student IDs.
Yeah.
And so we will put the QR code on the actual student ID.
Okay.
So that, and it's, school districts already have apps. But this gives the ability, because we can segment the student by school, just like we do seats in a stadium. So a principal at one high school might want to send a message out just to his students. Well, a district-wide app doesn't let him do that necessarily.
Yeah.
So we're going to program these to where every school will have their own build. So if there's a district that has 5 high schools, they will look like 5 completely different platforms, just like TCU and SMU and Baylor's all look different. And so we think it's going to help, and we think that it's something that we've gotten really good feedback so far, and we're really excited about it.
It's a phenomenal idea, and not just because of the big picture, but the mental health perspective you just talked about. Like these kids that are having these issues, this is a quick and easy and more desirable way to reach out for help. Right. In your own comments the other day on the phone, I mean, these kids need someone to step in and intervene, and calling a phone number on an ID doesn't really work anymore. They don't want to do that. They feel too...
Especially with their friends around. Yeah. I mean, and that's because our early conversations was with universities, and they said, hey, can we put these in dorm rooms? And what we learned was... a lot of these kids have mental health struggles, or sexual assault's a big one. I hate to say that, but it's true. But kids that are laying in their dorm rooms at night aren't going to pick up the phone and call a suicide prevention hotline.
You got a roommate sitting right there,
exactly
probably.
Right. But what they will do is scan that tag that's on their bedposts under their covers and chat with somebody in real time. We have realized that. And so I was talking to a school administrator from a district, and they recently had, unfortunately, a school shooting. And he said, we did a survey of all the students and all the teachers and all the parents, and said, what could we have done better? What do we need to do for the future? He told me, he said, we thought that the answer was going to be, we need metal detectors, we need more security guards, because it wasn't. He said, what we kept hearing is, we need somebody to talk to. We need an easy way to report things. That's what we need. Yeah. And so that's where I think that we fit in, is helping that for students, but also for teachers. Teachers that want to ask questions to the administration. They'll have a tag on their desk if they need to report something. If something's going on in the classroom that shouldn't be, they can just simply scan that tag and say, hey, I need somebody to get down here. So it's a multifaceted platform. In that
Phenomenal idea right there, Cameron. Kudos to you.
So on that note, on ideas, do you find yourself as an entrepreneur, like, sometimes the ideas just keep going and going? Like, do you have to, I mean, I would imagine with this, there are people coming to you, and your own creativity is such that we could do this, we could do this. Like, how do you hamper that down, or do you
maintain focus? That's Matt and I, we're like yin and yang, but we work really well together on what we're going to focus on, how we're going to do it. We spend a lot of time writing patents, and our patent team is phenomenal, and I hate them. And that's what I tell them all the time. I'm like, you guys make me do so much work, but it's the best thing for our company. And we've probably written 500 pages of patents in the last, 5 months. But we get them great. It's like writing dissertations, every one of them. I think the last one we wrote was 92 pages. And it's not, it's like all technical jargon that you're just like, makes your brain melt.
Are you trying to stay really broad though, to like cover everything?
A lot of them we look at, like NFTs is a big one. I think, there's a lot of people who are like, it's a bubble. Some of it I think is, but I think there's a big future there. So we try to stay ahead of it. But as far as ideas and what we focus on, we really look at total addressable market, what it's going to take from a CapEx perspective to address that market.
Yeah.
Are we ready to go into it? And it's funny because you'll go sometimes, especially when when you're in the process of raising capital, every investor is different on how they think of things. And so we'll sit in front of some investors that go, hey, we want to know what the entire market could be for digital seat. We need to know what it looks like in 10 years, how you get to be worth $5 billion. And then we'll sit in front of one that goes, I don't want to talk about anything but sports. I don't want to hear about medical. I don't want to. And so
I know which investor that was.
and so it's but we try to. It's hard a lot of times because we think about these things and we're like, man, wouldn't that be cool if? But we just really have to maintain focus because at the end of the day, we owe our shareholders return. We can't be going on these wild goose chases like I have, and we're very, very cautious with our capital and where we deploy it. Like we are a small team and we're a lean team and we like it that way, so that we're not going out. We don't want to go spending out tons of capital and go into a board meeting going, well, we spent $100,000 on this because we thought it might be a good idea. It wasn't. Like if we're going to do something, just like with this digital student, before we ever even talk about it, we go and my main thing is surrounding myself with people that are smarter than I am. Let's get the people in the room that have made the mistakes, that have done this, that are sitting in that chair. Like one of the people that we work with the most on this has been a superintendent for 19 years. And I ask, what are we doing right? What are we doing wrong?
So real quick though, I mean, kudos to you for not only doing the patent stuff, like the real hard, like devil in the detail work, but also implementing the actual product and idea, right? It's not just a show, but is some of the exit strategy on this, like if we got enough patents, man, somebody's going to come trolling along and grab, like these fish will bite,
100%.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the wider that we make them, and again, we have 5 patent families right now across from rideshare, medical, digital system for digital record verification, sports. I mean, so we have already received some calls from some really well-known names that say, hey, we see, that you got this patent that's been granted. Let's talk about this. So that's really, as our strategy is obviously let's do our business. Let's go make money from these other things. And I think the rest of it will follow. I think that if we continue to file these patents that eventually we become attractive enough to become a portfolio company or for, this big PE conglomerate to go, hey, look, I like what you're doing here.
Sure. Have you thought about doing it for JW's clothes? If he was to go to a summer camp or something where he could just scan it and you'd know that it belonged to him, or
we're pretty
fishing shirts only. So.
That's actually going to be the whole thing on the front, just front and back.
Oh, that's what it should be. Just a big QR
just
code
a big
T-shirt.
QR code.
Yeah.
I have a legitimate question now, Cameron. So the company's doing really well. Pandemic hits us. All live sporting comes to a halt.
Yeah.
So you're in a holding pattern there. People going out to eat finally, or QR codes became more of a prevalent thing in our lives. Is there a benefit to the pandemic because the QR code became so in your face all the time?
A huge benefit. And I remember sitting around.
Like forced adoption, right?
That's exactly right. We used to get asked all the time, every meeting, how am I going to educate my fans on how to use this thing? And we actually used to send social media kits out to all the schools, and they would run cartoon videos we had made, or we'd film it with the mascot. We have one with Superfrog of him scanning the tag, that kind of stuff. We never get asked that anymore, ever. I mean, because
kind of cool.
And
yeah,
so
it is.
I remember us sitting around in like April, May. And I remember telling Matt, I'm like, I'm hope that we look back on this one day and go, man, this was such a good thing for the company. I was like, because right now it sucks. I was like, this is not a
You
fun
probably
place to
are.
be.
Is that just
And
today,
so
that day?
I think we're at that point where we can visually say, look, that was better long term for the company because it accelerated adoption where we could never imagine, where we were trying to educate fans 100,000 at a time inside of a stadium. And so we took that upon ourselves and we're like, look, we're going to have to do it. Nobody else is. We're going to figure it out. We'll fight that fight. Now it's like we got 1 billion partners that are all doing it too. So we're like, well, this is great.
Right.
Would a QR code tattoo and be able to be scanned on skin?
There are people that do that. Yes. And so somebody made the comment about, we were talking about doing a marketing strategy on some different, an event that we're doing that's coming up, and was like, well, we should have temporary tattoos that are made. And so because we look at doing tailgates. We're doing the Fiesta Bowl, so we'll be there for a bunch of stuff. So, but have fans that can put them on, you scan them for different things. I mean,
We'll take that instead of a actual seat one. We'll take the temporary tattoos for our website.
As long as they're neck
Please.
up. Just,
Yeah. Forehead only.
Cameron, biggest challenges for digital seat media?
Biggest challenges. growth, I think, is figuring out, we went from having 4 employees, so now I think we have 32 full and part-time.
Here or in Austin? Both. Here and in Austin?
Yeah. And so, it's a challenge scaling that quickly. It is a challenge maintaining that focus. You're getting pulled in a lot of different directions. Because we work with big brands. Like when you're working with, again, the TCUs, the Oklahomas, the Washingtons of the world, not to mention the Googles and everybody else, then you get a lot of phone calls of people going, hey, what about this? Hey, can I use this at my 300 seat play auditorium that I have? And so, and it's just staffing up. And for us, it is culture. I know everybody says this, but culture is just a massively important part of the company. We want people, and we tell everybody this when they interview, no matter what job, what position, we tell them, look, this is not a 9-to-5 job. A lot of people need that structure, and they want to work Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. That's how my best friend is. At 5 o'clock, shuts it off. But his job allows for that. That's not Digital Seat. It is, we're there to serve a client, and we're there to serve a fan base. And if that means that on Thanksgiving morning that you're typing emails, unfortunately, that's what it means. Mm-hmm. But that's what it takes to get the job done. At the end of the day, that's what's up. There are plenty of companies that we're surpassing now that we're way ahead of us, but they sat around and played golf all day and patted themselves on the back and were like, hey, we did it. Yeah. Instead of taking that next step on how to innovate. Mm-hmm. And that's just that's not our philosophy.
Golf's not part of innovation?
It is not. I got 2 metal shoulders, so no, definitely not part of my innovation. But yeah, so scaling, finding those right pieces that we employ, I think is one of our biggest, I won't say challenges, it's just time consuming.
I just thought of an idea. I'm not to fully.
Do you want to put this on tape?
Did you hear it? Disclose it, but can you do the QR from far away, or does it have to be right there? Like, could you zoom in on the camera to get a QR, like on a sign far away?
Yeah, we do it on jumbotrons. So we'll do it sometimes.
It's on your
place
TV
it up
too?
there.
You don't see them on TVs?
Well,
they're on the TV? Mm-hmm. I didn't know that. I just read the yellow tag to see how much energy I'm saving each year.
Say I just read the yellow pages. I just still throwing those. So yeah, you can. We do that sometimes in venues that are either mid-season, saying, "Hey, I want to adopt it," and if we're behind on being able to get,
so you throw it up on the jumbotron, you can zoom in enough to grab it.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And we had pretty good adoption. We did it with Iowa State during football. I think they had 15% adoption rate. So
if you go to a sporting event, you might actually see that. So
I didn't know you could go to them. I thought it was just only for super fans like my partner here.
Are you able to go to sporting events now with what's been happening and still enjoy it the way that you used to love sports, or is it now a different animal for you?
If I'm going to a game that doesn't have our stuff in it, then yes, I enjoy it. But if I'm going to one that has tags down, then I'm always, looking at, because the coolest thing I think so far for all this was when we did our first big stadium, which was OU, and we finished the last tag 4 hours before the game started. Oh, wow. And so because of the pandemic, we were so rushed. So we put it down, and I sat down, and Cole, our implementation manager, was sitting there with me. And then
were those the individually wrapped, or these? No,
these were on the same. But I looked at him and I said, well, it's either going to work or it isn't. I said, we're going to find out real quick whether people actually scan this or not. And so it was really rewarding. Because we were from an elevated position, watching people sit down, open up their phones and scan this, and then nudge the person beside them, they scan it.
You could see it happening.
And you could watch it. And then we're watching the numbers on our phone as they go up and up. And we're like, and so after that game, I said, this is going to work. Like we got it. And so I still do that when we go to sporting game, events where I'm like looking around, like, are people using it? Mm-hmm. Or sometimes I'm like, if somebody's having problems with it, I'm like, hey, if you do and I'm sure they're like, man, does this guy come here a lot and do this? Scan these tags or
Creeper.
What? Yeah, what a weirdo.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, Cameron, we've enjoyed hearing your story. This is phenomenal stuff. So thank you for joining us, man.
Yeah, I appreciate it. It's been fun.
So we always finish it. You can do it this time.
All right.
Cameron.
You might. I don't know if you've ever heard any of our shows. If you haven't, it's okay. We only have a few people out there listening. But
in Belgium or
Germany too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Budapest.
Besides family, all that stuff, what's the best day of your whole life?
Besides family and all that stuff, best day of my whole life. That's a really good question. If outside of family, because really, family is everything to me, but it's probably, I will say back in high school, and I don't think I've talked about this since high school. We were playing a playoff game, and it was in double overtime, And it was to keep us going. I think it was to go to the semifinal game if we won this. I think that was right. And we were in double overtime, and I used to play cornerback, and he threw a pass, and I stepped back and caught it. And it was like a scene out of a movie. Like, we won. We had already scored, so we didn't have to do anything else. And that was a very, very cool experience.
Nice,
so
nice.
that was, again, outside of family and the typical answers, like that was a really good
That's
time.
the first one from an actual event. They were performing a task, and nobody ever tells us that was like the moment. That's a great answer.
Wait, a sport is an event? You're calling it
actually one.
I'm kidding. That's a great.
And I never,
one.
I don't think I legitimately don't think that I've talked about that probably since that day or that week at school afterwards. Like,
that will be the highlight of this whole.
Was
clip.
it just huge? Like
It was just a really exciting. I remember the first. So I'm still good friends with my coach from high school.
Oh, that's cool.
And so,
His name's not Brian Farda, is it?
no. And so we, so I remember the first person that tackled me because for whatever reason, I wasn't smart enough to just go down. We won the game. I was like, well, I'm going to go score, like from one end zone to the
right.
other.
Yeah.
And so I take off right, and the first one to tackle me was my coach. And I remember opening my eyes. I was like, what are you doing? He's like, we won. Like, quit running, lay down. I was like,
yeah.
I'm sure we probably just got a penalty for this. He's like, it doesn't matter. It's over. I was like, okay.
Oh, that's awesome.
What are you
That
gonna
is
do?
awesome.
What are you gonna do when your kid says, "Dad, I'm not going to college"? What are you gonna sell? What are you
You're
gonna tell
going to
him?
college. Like I tell my younger siblings, I'm the oldest of 5 boys.
Oh, wow.
And then I've got an older sister, but I told them, and a couple of them work for us. And I told them, I was like, you have to go to school. Like you've got, and my big thing is I tell them, go to school until you figure out what you want to be. Like if you get to your 3rd year and you're doing something else and you're doing really well at it and that's your passion, do that. But don't just sit around after and go, I'm not going to school because I'm not going to school.
Yeah.
Like that doesn't work. Like go to school, figure out what you want to be. If you don't make it 4 years, you don't make it 4 years. A lot of people don't. I didn't, but
Awesome.
You hear that, kids?
Yep.
Go to school. Don't do drugs.
there you go.
Cameron Fowler, Digital Seat Media. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Cameron.